So October has a Friday the 13th in it this year, and I also happen to be growing a giant zit on my nose. Coincidence? I think not. Hey everybody, Brett from Labets and the Belfry back for another video.
Welcome!
It's a Friday the 13th in October of 2023, so why not talk about one of the Friday the 13th movies? Surprisingly, I am a big fan of this series, but yet I only have one physical copy of one of the movies, and that's Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. I do really enjoy this movie, and this is one I wanted to talk about as far as this had the potential to be one of the best in the series. I actually would rank this pretty high if I did like a best to worst list. I would still rank this one up pretty up there, but the thing that ruins this movie, and a lot of people can see me what I'm going to talk about, is its editing. Not have the goriness and the extreme kills in it. Pretty much most of this movie, when you go to see a cool kill, it basically cuts right when the good part is about to happen, and then it will cut back to the aftermath of that. This really suffers because of it. The actual plot of this movie, I mean, this was a cool idea and it was a pretty cool concept. I mean, this is the Friday the 13th movie that basically is referred to as Jason versus Carrie. And you have the character of Tina, who pretty much develops telekinesis. Early in her life, she had like an abusive father who ended up getting killed basically in Crystal Lake. And so there's this loose connection between her and Jason Voorhees. And pretty much it's just them loosely taking on each other, but I mean, it still keeps that core Friday the 13th stuff where this was the last one before they moved out of Crystal Lake and had Jason go to Manhattan, New York City. This is one that kind of sticks to its guns, but it does a little bit more with it, luckily. And this is one I enjoy. I mean, it sucks about the kills, but this has one of the most famous kills, which is the sleeping bag kill. It's pretty awesome. This is the very first Friday the 13th film with Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees, who became pretty much the most famous Jason. And there's a good reason why Kane Hodder is the most well-known Jason, because he has such a physical presence as Jason, and he's the most ruthless Jason for sure. You think that with the editing, you think like, oh, they didn't have like good practical effects. No, like this was directed by a dude who was a special effects guy, and how Jason gets unmasked at the end of this movie, you're like, this is the coolest looking Jason unmasked. Like his face is super mangled, but he like looks like a monster. He doesn't look like just a guy with like a mangled face. Characters get picked off one by one. It is pretty typical, but the thing that stands out is the whole character of Tina having the telekinesis. And it's not really like, I'm glad it doesn't go super over the top with like, it's like, you know, Freddy versus Jason, it goes really over the top with its like action and fight scenes, but like this, it's not really like, I wouldn't even say there's like a legit real big fight scene between Tina and Jason. Like things just kind of happen in between, and then here and there she'll use something to her advantage as far as telekinesis goes. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say on this movie that's been said. I mean, the biggest thing that stands out is the fact that it cuts a lot of the gore out, and like you don't really see the kills happen on screen. It basically cuts away from the actual impact of the kills and then cuts back to the aftermath. There's a cool kill where Jason straight up takes an axe or like takes a hatchet to this girl's head, but it cuts away right before the axe like goes right into her head, and then it cuts back, and then you just see this girl with like her back to the camera and the axe is hanging out of her head, and then Jason just kind of throws her and then she goes flying over top the TV. If that kill wasn't cut, that would have been a great kill. The sleeping bag death is great. I mean, by itself, I mean, that still is one of the more memorable kills in this entire series. A pretty typical Friday the 13th movie, just with the extra telekinesis stuff. Jason versus Carrie type thing. It's very much Jason versus Carrie, but I just kind of wanted to come on a few minutes and talk about it. So this is, yeah, I still enjoy this movie, and like I never dread like ever having to like rewatch this movie. Like, I mean, the only thing is like you can find old vintage footage of like what the unedited kills were gonna look like, but unfortunately, a lot of that I think apparently was lost, and like there is no way they'll ever find it. Basically, it was like destroyed or something happened where like all the original filming of that, like you just can kind of find tiny little vintage clips on YouTube about it, but you really won't ever find this be re-released on Blu-ray with the unedited version. And it's a real shame because I mean, if they were ever able to find the unedited like version of this and release it, I mean, people would probably this would be ranked up way higher on like a best to worst list, and like people would hold this as like one of the best. But due to all the editing, it really ruins it, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's still a solid movie in the Friday the 13th franchise. I think it's better than a lot of them. Like, I'm not crazy about part 5. I don't care about part 8, part 9. Jason X has this so bad it's good. I like about it, but like this is still one of the more solid entries in the series. It's just unfortunate that, you know, it was a victim of having to edit things down so much that you couldn't even really see the kills. It's still a fun movie. Part 6 is better. I would say just watch part 6. That is my #1 pick for best Friday the 13th movie. This one's not bad though. And, you know, if you're just marathoning all the movies, this is not a bad entry. And I don't think people, I mean, besides the whole lack of editing or the whole lack of showing all the kills, like that's the biggest criticism on this movie, honestly. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up on it, and I will see you in a future video. Bye.